Welcome, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming to another fire drill, Fireside Fire Drill. And I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but you know that the work that we're doing together is really making a difference. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Last Friday was our most viewed Fireside Fire Drill yet. We had 420,000 people. Can you believe it? Almost 250 new people signed up to volunteer in the past 2 weeks. And more than 1 million people have viewed us since July. So we're growing and we're building something really beautiful together. And I'm so grateful to you for being part of this community and for taking action with me. It just makes me so happy, and I hope it does you too. And I have an update for you on something that we've been talking a lot about on these Fireside Fire Drills, the HEROES Act. It's a bill that proposed to support essential workers and our democracy. And now the terribly watered down, half-hearted alternative proposed by the Republican Senate. They're calling it the HEALS Act, which took about 2 months to be brought forward, and it's not nearly good enough to meet the magnitude of what we're facing. We need immediate investments, as you know, for families and schools and essential workers and our democracy, basically. We don't need measures that prioritize corporate profits over people. This HEALS Act that's in front of the Senate right now is not enough to provide the relief that workers and families so desperately need. It's going to do nothing to support people-powered democracy and protect vital public services like the U.S. Postal Service. We're going to need a strong postal service for November 3rd. No. Instead, McConnell is laser focused on shielding corporations from legal liability, even while they receive billions of dollars of tax write-offs and bailouts, and they all exploit primarily Black, Brown, and Indigenous workers during the pandemic. And yet they're the ones that are getting the money. But yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday on Capitol Hill, Greenpeace US brought life-size cutouts of essential workers to the Capitol lawn to send a clear message to the senators. Congress must do its job to protect essential workers in our elections and pass the HEROES Act. So please call your senators and tell them that the HEALS Act simply is not good enough. And you can do this by visiting firedrillfridays.com/workers. Building long-term people power to demand climate justice is at the core of what we've been doing together. And the next step is getting out the vote, getting out the vote. Fire Drill Fridays and Greenpeace have launched a massive electoral organizing program to ensure that we elect climate champions up and down the ballot. And we need you. I feel like that Uncle Sam, we need you. We do. We're building some very large volunteer voter contact teams. I'm talking thousands of people. First, we want you to identify climate, where we are identifying climate voters within the critical races around the country. And then what we need is your help to text them and make sure they actually turn out and vote. And for those of you who don't mind making actual calls and talking to real people, we need you to reach out to voters across the country and have persuasive conversations with them. And you're going to receive training for all of this. Trust me, you can do it all from your home and you'll be trained. Now, in addition, we're following the science when it comes to getting out the vote practices and postcard writing when it comes to that. Postcard writing has been shown to make a significant difference if done the right way. We're talking about postcards to undecided voters, and to friends, or as follow-ups to calls and texts that you've sent. So we're recruiting for that too. And if you've signed up and haven't yet heard back from us, don't give up, please. You will hear from us very, very soon. We also have a team of dedicated Latinx and constituency organizers who'll be working around the clock to ensure we engage and turn out the Latinx voters in November. So if you're a Spanish speaker, we need you. So please go to firedrillfriday.com/volunteer and sign up so our organizers can reach out and get you plugged in. I hope you'll join us. You know, besides, it feels good to be part of a community all working for the same thing, don't you think? And the folks that are training you are top-notch organizers. So you're going to be learning something about organizing too. Maybe you'll become one. Today we're focusing on trees, forests, and the people who protect them. I don't know about you, but I have always loved trees from the time I was a little girl. I loved climbing to the very highest branches where I always had my best thoughts and ideas. I always loved walking in dense forests, whether it's been the redwood forests or the giant sequoia forests of Northern California or the aspen forests in the Rocky Mountains or wherever. I've traveled a lot and I've been in a lot of forests. I didn't realize at the time, though, that forests can actually affect our well-being. Did you know that? Different trees in different ways. And in countries that have older, wiser cultures than ours and understand trees better than we do, people search out different forests to walk through and spend time in. They say they're taking a forest bath and it can heal them. Yet even with my love of trees, there's so much that I didn't know about them until recently. I didn't know that trees communicate with each other. Makes me emotional. They look out for each other and they send warnings to each other when danger is at hand, and they can provide healing potions to their wounded neighbors when needed. You know, if you haven't read the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Overstory by Richard Powers, I urge you to do that. Or the nonfiction book, The Hidden Life of Trees. Do it. These books will rock you. But if you're like me, learning what trees have to teach us will make what's happening to trees on this planet feel like torture. I mean, how dare we? Almost half the oxygen we breathe come from forests, with the other part coming from the ocean. And like the ocean, forests also store carbon in their trunks and leaves and roots. And forests create their own weather. The moisture that evaporates from their leaves forms clouds, makes rain, contributing to the very intricate, complex balance of nature. But do you realize that we've already lost 30% of the planet's forests? You know, just saying that makes my stomach knot. 20% of forests are degraded, and much of the rest is fragmented, leaving only 15% of the original forests intact. Now that is scary. The major forests are burning all over the world. Some of the fires are caused or exacerbated by climate change, but they're also deliberately set by those who want to burn the forests to clear them for agriculture or cattle ranching. Last winter at Fire Drill Friday in DC, Hannah Heineken from the Rainforest Action Network, she explained about peatlands. Have you heard about peatlands, P-E-A-T lands? These are dense wetlands with layers of moss and shrubs and fungi that store tremendous amounts of carbon and are concentrated across the northern part of the globe, Canada, Russia, Alaska, as well as Indonesia. And Hannah told us that when forests and peatlands burn, a huge amount of carbon is released, making forests and peatlands into versions of fossil fuel emissions. And then Rolf Sklar, a senior campaign strategist for Greenpeace, told me at the same Fire Drill Friday last winter that in some of the biggest and most important forests on the planet, the carbon's actually stored in the soil. And that's the case in the boreal forest, which again, it stretches across the crown of the globe, across Canada, Alaska, and Russia. Rolf said that when you disturb these soils, you're tapping into this carbon piggy bank that's been building up for thousands and thousands of years. He said that the deforestation and burning of forests and peatlands causes more damage to the environment than all the cars, trucks, trains, planes, and ships in the world combined. I mean, we have to do everything we can to save our friends, the world's forests, partly because they do so much to save us, but also just because the trees themselves are so awesome. One of the most important ways that we can protect the forests, and this is key, is to protect and uphold Indigenous peoples' rights, because these are the people who've lived in these forests since time immemorial, who depend on the forests for their way of life and very existence. So they tend to manage them sustainably. In fact, Indigenous peoples and local communities manage almost a quarter of the total carbon found above ground in the global tropics. I mean, it's just amazing to me. That's about 250 times the carbon dioxide emissions from global air travel in 2015 that's managed and controlled by Indigenous peoples. Research shows that deforestation rates inside forests that are legally managed by Indigenous people are 2 to 3 times lower than in other forests. So fighting to protect Indigenous people's rights to their land. This isn't just a do-gooder thing, okay? It's an example of enlightened self-interest. They can really help protect us from climate disaster. And I know that our guests today are going to help us understand what we can do to best protect the forests and their Indigenous champions. And I want to also tell you that right now forests, parts of the Amazon forest are being cut to make room for new burial grounds for forest dwellers who've died of COVID-19. 18,000 people have died thus far in Brazil's Amazon region. You know, Indigenous peoples have been roughly 6 times as likely to be infected by COVID as white people. And far-flung Amazonian villages that are untouched by electricity have been infected by people traveling there in boats. And of course, boats are the only way to access those remote places. It reminds me of what's happening here in the United States on Indigenous land. Mining companies in the Amazon are taking advantage of the coronavirus to send miners into the rainforest. And they're bringing the virus with them too. You know, this is what our friend Winona LaDuke is worried about. The pipeline workers are coming into northern Minnesota now to work on the Enbridge #3 pipeline. And they may be bringing COVID into that part of the country on Indigenous lands as well. But listen, here's the good news. Organizations like Greenpeace and Rainforest Action Network have pushed some of the largest corporation players like Citigroup, Unilever, Nestle, to commit to what they call no deforestation, no peatland, no exploitation policies, which means that they've made a commitment to get their supply chains free of deforestation. This means the companies have to have full understanding of their supply chains. You know, which trader is it coming from? Which producer is that trader buying from? And where is it actually being grown? After a Greenpeace campaign, McDonald's made a commitment to not buy soy from deforested land in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. And rather than just doing it alone, McDonald's worked with Greenpeace and their soy supplier Cargill and other stakeholders to help create what's called the soy moratorium. And that's all great, but you know, we still need to remain critical because deforestation hasn't slowed down. And while companies have made these pledges and commitments to eliminate deforestation from their supply chains, they continue to do business with forest destroyers. You know, and then there are the other companies, Burger King, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell. They've been all talk and zip action, nothing. The stats show that 70% of that tropical deforestation is actually being caused by these companies, and they're publicly held companies, meaning that their shareholders can make a difference. You know, if shareholders start saying, you're violating indigenous rights or you're deforesting the tropical forests, this has a real impact on company behavior. Again, it's people power. Letting them know that we're watching and we're holding you accountable. This is what's going to get those companies' attentions. Okay, so what else can we do? At the indigenous, at the individual level, we can start by reducing your consumption of single-use products, particularly those derived from paper, wood, and rubber. And when making food choices, avoid products that contain palm and soybean oil, and avoid livestock that's grazed on deforested land or that were fed soybeans from deforested area. Try to move away from animal products altogether and eat a more plant-based diet. You know, I mean, these individual decisions aren't going to solve everything, but they will make a difference for your health and the planet's. Now, before I introduce my two wonderful guests today to learn more about the Amazon and how it affects us all, it's time for our weekly good news segment. And we have two pieces of good news to share today. This week, the American Federation of Teachers has endorsed the Green New Deal. Included in the resolution is a pledge to put solar panels on all schools. Yes, this is incredible news. It's a victory for the growing collaboration between labor and the climate movement. Thank you, AFT, all you teachers. Congratulations. And then also in keeping with today's theme, here's a victory for the Amazon and for people power. Just a couple of months ago, Congress in Brazil was about to pass a bill that would recognize land illegally invaded. So if, say, miners forcibly moved into protected areas or indigenous lands, the bill would have allowed those invaders, those miners, to call the land theirs, even if it was in protected areas. But, and this is huge, public pressure from scientists, civil society, influencers, and even foreign ministers of the country stopped Congress from voting on the bill for now. While the threat is real and could still come to fruition, this is a huge example of how people power can spark change. All over the internet, people in Brazil were posting, they were tagging members of Congress in Brazil and demanding them not to vote for this bill, and it worked. It's another example of why our individual and collective action really does matter. It really does work. It's the only thing that ever has. Now, to tell us more about the progress happening in the Amazon and what we can do, please join me in welcoming Alice Braga and Tica Minami. Alice Braga is a Brazilian actress, I wish I was, and activist known for her standout roles in films such as City of God, Blindness, and most recently, the star of USA Network's Queen of the South. She next stars in the Disney thriller, The New Mutants, and in Luca Guadagnino's much anticipated HBO television series, We Are Who We Are. In 2016, Braga traveled to the Amazon with Greenpeace. When she visited the Munduruku indigenous lands in the village of Salre-Muibu, she saw firsthand the struggle people face to protect their land due to the construction of a massive hydroelectric dam. Braga quickly learned how important it was to share these stories and help them in their fight for justice. And because she realizes that this isn't an individual quest, but a collective one, Braga has become an advocate for Greenpeace, and she's done 3 terrific videos for Greenpeace that you can see on our Fire Drill Friday website. They're just wonderful. So welcome, Alice. I'm just so thrilled that you're here.
Oh, thank you, Jane. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
And also with us today is Tica Minami, an activist and rebel who loves the forests. She believes in love and creative indignation. I just love that. Creative indignation as transformative forces of mankind. Since 2001, she's been joining forces with others, looking for a fairer and more free world. Currently, she's the director of campaigns for Greenpeace Brazil. She also encourages and promotes other troublemaker initiatives. You're a Brazilian John Lewis, aiming to create democracy, social justice, environmental protection, as well as human rights. Welcome, Tica.
Thank you, Jane. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to thank you for this troublemaking initiative.
I'm just so glad you're here. And before we get into questions, we have a video to play from the incredible Sonia Guajajara. Is that how to pronounce it?
Guajajara.
Guajajara, from the Guajajara people. She's an indigenous leader in Brazil and the coordinator of the Brazil's Indigenous People Articulation. Let's watch.
Nós estamos vivendo uma das maiores crises da humanidade. Uma pandemia que já matou milhares de pessoas em todo o mundo e chegou forte nos territórios indígenas. Já são 600 indígenas mortos nessa guerra do novo coronavírus. Quando morre um de nós, a nossa cultura está ameaçada. E quando a nossa cultura é enfraquecida, os modos de vida se alteram e, portanto, a biodiversidade também está ameaçada. As florestas são essenciais para manter o clima equilibrado, para evitar furacões, enchentes, secas. E comprovadamente o modo de vida dos povos indígenas tem contribuído muito para esse equilíbrio climático. Portanto, nós precisamos juntos lutar contra esse modelo econômico altamente predatório, opressor e centralizador. Nós precisamos lutar pela descentralização do uso da terra, fortalecer a economia a partir da demarcação dos territórios indígenas, da regularização dos territórios quilombola, da reforma agrária, da valorização da agricultura familiar, da economia solidária. São essas as alternativas para que a gente possa salvar não só o presente, mas o futuro da humanidade.
It was beautiful. So, Tica and Alice, let me ask you a first question. Can you give our viewers an overview of the current situation in the Amazon? Can you do that? Who wants to go first?
I can go first. Well, Jane, situation in the Amazon, or not only the Amazon, but in the Amazon is dire. And we as human race, we have work to do immediately now. The Amazon is very near at a tipping point or a point of no return. Since the 70s, the Amazon, 19% of the Amazon has already been destroyed, gone, disappeared. And scientists are saying that if we reach 20 to 25% of destruction, then the forest will no longer be able to sustain its as a forest, and it will start to dry out and become a savanna. When the forest is cut back at 25%, it will lose its ability to hold the moisture and store this carbon that you were saying at the beginning. Also, it will, when it turns into savanna, we will lose a lot of our biodiversity. And what we are seeing is that there is actually a twin crisis going on nowadays. It's the climate crisis and also biodiversity loss at an unprecedented rate. So there is 1 million species risking the threat of extinction. Also, we are losing species that we don't even know that they exist. So I think you're right, like protecting forests is the most, the cheap and the most effective way to balance the climate, to protect biodiversity, and also the indigenous people and the forest people. There are also studies showing that the indigenous lands are from all protected areas that exist, like national parks, reserves, indigenous lands are most efficient to curb deforestation, and also the forest inside those areas, they are more resilient to climate change. And the reason is very simple, it's just because there are people there, the indigenous people there taking care of the forest. So, yeah.
In a little while, we're going to be getting to what people can do to help save the forest and its protectors. But Alice, can you explain to our viewers how we are all inextricably linked, connected to the Amazon, and how what happens in the Amazon affects all of us?
Definitely, Jane. So nice that in your introduction, I could see so many people from all over the world, like Germany and Philippines and all that, because sometimes when we're so far away from the Amazon, and not all of us grow up like knowing about the Amazon and calling the Amazon of the lungs of the world, and that it is, in fact, as you said, about the importance of the trees and all that. But I do believe, especially nowadays, we are and we have to be really connected to the Amazon, because it is the biggest tropical forest in the world. So it helps balance the global climate. And the situation, like Tica just said, is so urgent right now, especially with this government that we have right now. But the situation is so urgent with deforestation and how this system that we live works, is that if we lose the Amazon, we lose everything. So all of us are directly connected to the Amazon for that, because it is a question that it is affecting. When you see the fires in Australia, the fires in California, the flooding that is happening in Bangladesh as we speak, what happened last week in China with the floodings, the hurricane last week here coming to the US, and as we speak, I woke up this morning with the hurricane Isaias, I think it's the name that is coming. It just went as a tropical storm in Puerto Rico. So all of this, they are connected with the climate crisis. And all of this is also connected with the Amazon because of that, because we need the Amazon. And Tica actually said something that I think it's beautiful. In one of our talks, she told me once, it is the lungs of the world. But I think nowadays, with the urgency of it, we need to see it for all of us, all over the world, as the heart, because it is what pumps, like you said, the trees, they create the rain, and that's what keeps the climate. And the Amazon has that, strength as a heart that pumps, the veins for the world.
Thanks for that. Just in case some of you aren't aware, Bolsonaro, who is the president of Brazil, who got into office in January 2019, ran on a platform of tearing apart protections for indigenous peoples and traditional communities, and of doing whatever he needed to do to pay back big industrial agricultural interests, the ones that helped him get elected. What can we do, Alice and Tica, to send a message to Bolsonaro that this has to stop? Is there a way to boycott products that his government sells to the UK or to the US that we can boycott?
Tica?
Well, I think, and I do believe in what you're saying, also, Jane, that people power can really make a difference and really matters. I think that just a few weeks ago, several companies and investors signed a letter and sent to the government, to Bolsonaro government, expressing and raising concern over Amazon deforestation and the protection of indigenous rights. And also warning that Brazil could risk divestment if this anti-environmental and destructive agenda goes any further. Also this week, a major bank in Europe, the fund JBS, which is the largest meat producer in the world, and it's a Brazilian company, also because of involvement in deforestation, corruption, and workers' exploitation. And I think that all the stakeholders are only acting also because of the public pressure campaigns done by civil society and citizens, all in Brazil and outside Brazil. And I think that sends a very clear message to the government and also to the companies that that the frame that that actually Bolsonaro is reinforcing, that nature, we can either have nature or economic development, is wrong. When people around the world and also the economic forces are also saying that actually there is no development without nature, there is no development without rights of the people. So what we need is to send this clear message. And I think that has been the campaign led by people that are making those economic agents to pressure the companies and the governments. And also, one of the things that we are raising in the videos series is that, yes, the individual choices are very important, but actually this system, which is not inevitable, it was designed by those companies and those governments. So they have a greater responsibility than us to solve this crisis and this problem. And they will not do it by themselves. We will have to make them.
Is it important for people that are like on this call from all around the world that we sign the petition that you talk about?
I do believe so. Go ahead, Tica.
No, you can go, Alice.
I was going to say that I think it's really important to sign the petition, Jane, and also, like you said, it's so inspiring that you said so much about people's power, because what we discussed a lot in the series is that it's the same thing as recycling. We can recycle every single straw that we have we want at home, but if companies still produce 300 million plastic straws every day, the oceans are going to be polluted. So I think it's the same thing with the agriculture business, is that if we can change our behaviors at home, but us as people, we need to sign the petitions. We need to vote for people that are connected to the climate emergency, that believes in science, that can change Congress, that can make a change, into this system that it's been created, it's been designed. So for all of us, it's very important, to get in hand with it. Do you know what I mean? Like to act, signing the petition and voting.
Yes,
for.
How do we do that? So I am sure that the team that's behind Fire Drill Fridays is going to have the petition up in the chat room. And I encourage people to go to the chat room to get their hands on the petition to sign it. Please do that. So yeah, it's right there, I think. Greenpeace. Yeah, it's in the chat room now, the petition that we need you to sign. So that's one thing that we can do. What other ways can we protect Indigenous people's rights? I mean, what are the things that we can do, since we can't travel long distance now? I mean, I so want to just go down there and put my body on the line to stop the miners and the bulldozers and everything. But what can we do from where we are?
Indigenous people in Brazil, they are very organized. Sonia Guajajara, we just watched her message from, and is a dear friend of mine. She is leading a PEEP, which is the Brazil Indigenous People Movement. They are organizing a lot of rallies also to fight for their rights since 2005. Because with the Bolsonaro government, the rate, speed, and intensity of the threat to the forest and to their lives is even greater now than it was before. So they are organizing. So for example, they have just launched the Indigenous plan to fight the COVID, also together with progressive congressmen in Brazil who presented and approved a bill for the government to pass measures to emergency measures to fight COVID for the Indigenous people. But shocking as it is, Bolsonaro has vetoed some measures on this law. And actually he has forbidden or taken the responsibility of the government, for example, to provide right now during the pandemic, drinking water and hospital beds for the Indigenous people. And because they are, as you were saying, they are more vulnerable right now, they also launched this Indigenous plan to fight the COVID, and they also have a site for donations because they will need this money in order to make viable this plan. So whatever you are, if you can also support, stand in solidarity with the Indigenous, support their fight, donate if you can. People, the Indigenous people all over Brazil, not only in the Amazon, they are in extreme need for our help right now. And actually, they are the ones protecting our future as well. So it is time for us to pay back to them.
So let's put the way that people can contribute up into the chat room so that people can send money. I've just sent money to them, and some of my friends have sent money, and it's really important. So in the chat box, it'll give you information about how to do that. And I assume that the petition is for all people, not just US citizens. Is that correct?
Yes, the petition, I think that the petition is for all people, not only from the US. What we are actually demanding is that all companies and also governments, they need, if companies are not able to fulfill their promise and protect the forest and end deforestation for their products, then governments need to come in and actually enact these changes. We need actually leaders and congressmen that actually also put forward legislations that protect the nature and actually put people first. This is what we need.
Right. I can see now in the chat room, the Indigenous Coalition in Brazil, the website, the link is up there where you can donate.
Yeah.
Also, are there current campaigns aimed at Burger King and Taco Bell and the other companies to make them join the no deforestation, no peatland, no exploitation campaigns? What's the best way to make noise right now?
I would say that the fast food companies, they are one piece of the puzzle. What we are trying and what we need is actually change the way that our food is produced, because and we are talking about a massive industry. It's the global commodities trade. And it will take not only one company or one single company or one government, but actually different stakeholders and different decision makers to take bold action to change the system. It's how we use our land and to produce food for people and not for animals, to produce food and not fuel for cars and other means of transport. So we have only one planet, and the amount of land that we have is only one, and we need to choose very wisely. Industry cannot grow endlessly or expand endlessly to make a profit. We really need those lands to store the carbon and to keep this planet livable. So I think that we also need to think that we need food produced by people for the people. So in Brazil, for example, the agribusiness or the industrial agriculture, it represents big companies that actually concentrate a lot of land in the hands of a few that is produced on monoculture. So it destroys the biodiversity. That is commodity, and it goes for exports. Usually like 90% of the soy that is produced is to feed animals and not humans. So I think that we actually need, and there is another information that actually those companies in since 2010, they are signing agreements and making promise to end deforestation for their supply chain. Very little has been done. Almost 10 years passed. And the initiative you mentioned, the Amazon Soy Moratorium, actually it happened when it was in 2004 that the Amazon reached the second largest deforestation in a year. It was 24,000 square kilometers destroyed in 1 year. And in 2006, when the Amazon Soy Moratorium was in place or was created, it helped, it was one of the factors that helped actually to reduce deforestation in the Amazon by 80% until 2012. And that was also because governmental efforts to create protected areas, to do fiscalizations, to fight environmental crimes in the Amazon. So it has to be a combined force. But actually, if the Cerrado, which is the Brazilian savanna, continues, the agribusiness continue to expand into the Cerrado. So my question to those companies is, if we can protect the Amazon, why can't we protect all the other natural ecosystems also in Indonesia or in Africa? The companies and the industry know how to do it. They have the tools and they have the resources to do it. So I think, and also climate change is putting a clock. So we are running against the clock. So every day it passes, and it has 10 years already. So it is time for the companies to get a grip of their supply chain and ensure our right to know how this product is being made.
Thanks, Tica. So Alice, let's talk about the Countdown to Destruction video series that you teamed up with Greenpeace to create. Just for those in the audience at home, this launched on July 20th this year, and Alice gave her Instagram fans a sneak preview, which generated more than 500,000 views within the first 36 hours. Alice, what inspired you to make this series? And what actions do you want people to take after they watch the videos? And by the way, after this Fire Drill chat is over, the videos are going to be available on the Fire Drill Friday website. So why did you do this, Alice?
When I first read Tica and we met a long time ago, and like a couple of years ago, when she sent me the Greenpeace report, and the name is Countdown to Extinction. When I read it, Jane, it really got to me as a citizen, as a human being, because it's information that we kind of hear, we know it's out there. It was a big report, and of course we couldn't like be spreading out huge report. But as soon as I read it, I felt an urgency for us to talk about this because of exactly what Tica just said. We can change our behavior, but it needs to come from the source. We need these companies to stop financing forest destroyers. That's the main thing. And when I read it, my main desire was to try to get that report and condensed into videos and explain to people how their lives, their daily lives, and what they eat, which is a simple thing, a simple act that we do every day, can affect our health, the health of our planet, and also equality all over the world, you know, for workers and all that. So for me, it was the main thing. It was to try to communicate, to explain how it all worked, because sometimes it's too much information and it's hard for us. And the idea that we wanted, and that's why I was so excited when a lot of people responded. I think today we have more than 1.2 million views. So please keep sharing, because what we want is exactly what you inspire us to do, Jane, is to spread the word, is to take action, is to call, is to talk to your grandma, to your cousin, to your aunt, to your mama, like spread the message, talk about it, understand, and put pressure, because it works. And we need that because the clock is ticking. So that's why I really wanted to be part of it. And I was very impressed. And if you think about it, Jane, the report was called Countdown to Extinction. We called our series Countdown to Destruction, but it's really important for people to understand that we need to act. And it's in our hands to put pressure on them to defund, you know, to stop this deforestation in forests.
You're like me, Alice. You'll read a book and it will change your life and make you do something really important.
Well, you changed me, Jane, because I'm really much into it, inspired by you.
Do you have, either one of you have anything more to say about how we in the US could learn from what you've experienced in Brazil? And then after that, we're going to take audience questions. But you want to add anything, either one of you? What can we learn about what you've experienced in Brazil?
Can I say something, Tica?
Of course.
I think I live in the US and I'm from Brazil and I live in both countries, but I spend a lot of time here. And what I can say, it's the same fight, because when you see these fires in California, that was devastating. And when you see these hurricanes completely wiping cities and destroying people's lives, this is only going to get worse. So it is everyone's issue. And I feel that we're one. And it's really important, I think. I mean, I'm Brazilian, I don't vote here, but there is an important election coming. And I do believe it's really important for people to take this thing in a very serious way, that whoever is the president of the United States and whoever is in the United States Congress do matter for the world, because of these companies, because of everything that happens with money. So I think it is important for everyone in the world, but in the US, especially now as we speak, to take action voting. Please vote.
Yes. Okay, how about questions from the audience? Jess?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. This first question is for you, Elise. We're wondering, was there a specific moment that prompted you to start getting more involved in activism, and what was it?
It's Tica's fault. Because she invited, actually Greenpeace Brazil, they invited me to visit the Munduruku indigenous land in Pará, in Amazonia, in Brazil. And I went there because there was a campaign against the construction of a mega dam in the Rio Tapajós, which is a beautiful river and massive river in the Amazon. And it would destroy everything around. It would completely flood their land. So I went there, and it was life-changing for many reasons. Everyone that goes to the Amazon, it is something that is beautiful. And Jane, when all of this is over, I want to bring you, because it's something very unique. But apart from that power of seeing forest, it was the connection with the Munduruku that changed me in many levels, especially because the way that they see life, like for us, a home is a home. We go inside the door, we lock the door, and this is our home. For them, everything is their home. Their river is their home. The tree is part of their home, everything. So they're one with nature. And I think we completely got disconnected from there. And we have so much to learn from there. You know, like I think they are not the past. They are our future. They really should inspire us to see life the way that they see. And especially now, I think, you know, with all the deforestation and the rate that everything is, and now with this government specifically, this president, Jane, just so you know, and I think it's important for everybody to know why it's important talking about this government, that he, for example, when he was running for president, he said that the indigenous people needed to evolve and integrate into society. And that it's completely opposite. We need to learn from them. Like, you cannot use those words to talk about indigenous people. They should inspire us because they are the future.
That's right. They have so much to teach us.
It answered the question.
Yeah. Yes?
Thank you. Yes. So Brent on Zoom asks, how are these giant food and agriculture corporations able to get away with what they're doing? And what can we all do to stop their lobbying?
Well, I think not as only as a consumer, and I keep saying that in our chats, me and Elise and another good friend, that we have for too long been treated as only as a consumers, but we are citizens. And the governments and companies should be accountable for us. So the companies, they already have agreements. They already have promised to do better than they are doing. And but when I think we as citizens can send a very clear message to them that the products tainted with forest destruction or in violation of indigenous rights or invasion of protected areas will lose access to markets. Because this is what actually make them change. So although we need to hold them accountable for their acts and also ensure us the transparency and the right to know, so we can also choose whether to consume or buy a product or not.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Great. And Brianna on Zoom asks of you, Elise, what was the most astonishing thing you learned about the agribusiness when you were reading the report and working on the videos?
I think the main thing is how they can get away with it. Exactly what Tica is saying, because the problem is that, for example, if you think of a cow, the cow walks. So nowadays, if the company buys the cow from not a clean land, from that land, it says that it's not coming from deforested land. But that cow went to many other areas that could have been deforested land. So that's why taking control of their supply chain is really important, because otherwise it's just signed off as not coming and not financing deforestation, but in a way they are, because they are paying for that if they're not taking care of the supply chain. So I think it's really important to understand how it all works. And I remember reading the report. For me, it was something that it's so big and it's such a huge system. And that's why I invite everybody to watch the videos, because what we try to explain there is how the system works. And it's funny because there's a moment in the video, and I think you saw it, Jane, that we say that when Greenpeace reached for the company said, oh, it's too complicated to talk about our chain. And then you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's complicated? Let's break it down. So it's not that it's complicated, it's because the way that the system was created and how massive it became, we lost track of it. Or it was planned to lose track of it. We'll never know. But that's why we need to change how it is, because otherwise it's just a mess. They need to control their supply chain. So I think that was the biggest thing in my mind, because if we don't stop it, it won't stop by itself. That's the main thing.
I want to find out if Greenpeace or any other organizations have shareholder campaigns going on. You know, you can, I don't know what Burger King or Kentucky Fried Chicken or Taco Bell, I don't know how much their stocks sell for, but let's say $10. I think if you own one share, maybe you go to shareholders' annual meetings and you raise a stink.
That's a big thing. I think it can amplify, like, I'll make a lot of change, Jane, because what Tica was saying, and I think it came out in The Guardian this week, right, Tica, about JBS.
Yes.
I think you can tell everybody that's how important it is, because that's a massive company. And I think Tica can explain. I think what you said, Jane, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some, I don't know if tackling the agribusiness sector, but there has been some campaigns. I know that I think I saw in the chat PETA does. Greenpeace has done in some of campaigns, like buying shares from a company to be able to go to the shareholders meeting and actually have a say or a vote, and then you know, disengaging. Disengage.
Money
Yes.
talks.
Yeah, we try to see, and I think that we actually wanted to do kind of, instead of a crowdfunding, kind of not only Greenpeace, but actually that people were able also to become a shareholder of these companies. But actually on the fast foods, it was a little bit, the share were a bit expensive to do kind of a mass public campaign on this. But yes, it is a very good strategy and tactic.
Good. I'm going to do it. Boy, they're going to see me coming and they'll get worried. They know I can raise a stake, especially if I'm with hundreds of people. We're going to do this. We're going to do it.
Awesome.
We need to take Jane to the Amazon, Tica.
We do.
So Jess, we have time for maybe, we're running out of time. One more question.
Absolutely, thank you. Marina on Zoom has a question for you, Tica. Are we able to rebuild or replant what has already been destroyed in the Amazon?
Great question.
Yes, well, Greenpeace believes so. Greenpeace believes that actually, as I was saying, it is, bottom line, it is how we use the land and for what and who is using the land. So as Sonia was saying, it needs to be given to the indigenous, the ancestor lands for the indigenous people and other local communities. There's a lot of small producer families that are producing eco-ag food that needs access to those lands and not the big business. And also part of this land needs to be, to grow forest again. So we can tackle and solve the climate crisis we are in. So I think that that would be for me the three main uses of the for land. So producing food by people, that are benefiting families to benefit other families, to the indigenous lands and protected areas, and also to regrow forests. So we have a way out of this climate emergency we're in.
And we talk about it in our video 3, well, it could be the actions, and those are one of them.
That's great. Let's do this. Alice.
Let's do this.
Do this. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to the two of you for coming on to talk about this. I can tell from the comments in the chat box that people really want to help, and they really want to get involved, and they know how important the Amazon forest is. So I'm deeply grateful. We're going to do this.
Oh, thank you very much, Jane. It was an honor to wear red with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. Don't forget to go to firedrillfriday.com/volunteer to sign up and help us build people power between now and the election and beyond. Because even if we have our way and you know who gets elected, well, Biden gets elected, we're going to need to have huge amount of people power to force him to do what's needed for here in the United States and for the Amazon and for the whole world. You know, one good thing about Biden is that he can be pressured. Not all of them can. I mean, the guy that's in there now, forget about it, like Bolsonaro.
Exactly.
You know, all they care about is money. But Biden can be pressured. So we have to get him elected, and then we have to fight for us, ourselves here in the United States, and for the Amazon in order to save us here in the United States. And then, by the way, do please pre-order my book. It's called What Can I Do? My Path from Climate Despair to Action. You can go on janefonda.com and find a way to order it. And if you do order it, you get a special little personal video from me. And then thank you so much. And I will see you next week. Take care, be good to each other, stay safe. Much love to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Jane.
Everyone.